Yo, welcome back to another episode of Mailbag Monday, your all signal, no noise weekly Bitcoin podcast. I am your host, Jack. I hope you are all doing well, and we're going to get right into it. I am recording live on March 17th, 2025 at around 6 p.m. Eastern with a Bitcoin price of $84,130. That puts the asset class at just north of a $1.6 trillion market cap. And I'm speaking live at Bitcoin block height 888,246 Bitcoins. All-time high is $109,300, which puts us down about 23% from the all-time high. Now, last week was one of my most popular episodes. You guys really seemed to love it. What's the feedback I got? No trivia, so we will not be doing any trivia. Keep the episodes shorter and get started right away. Don't wait for people. If you're late, you're late. So I'm going to hit the ground running. We're not going to do any trivia. It's going to be a relatively short episode. We're going to do the topic I want to talk about in the week, and then we're going to do some Q&A. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Again, for those listening recorded, that I'm recording these live. So you have an opportunity to come join me live, ask questions in the chat. My team will document your questions. I will answer them at the end of the show. With that being said, my topic is macroeconomics, is checking in on macro, particularly the Secretary of the Treasury, particularly Scott Bessent. I think when we think about Bitcoin, when we think about the range it's in, when we think about price activity, what to expect, I've been saying for many, many months now, this is a wear you out and scare you out phase within Bitcoin. This market's going to chop you and eat you alive. I don't expect Bitcoin to run away anytime soon. It's a lot of near-term volatility, long-term bullishness. I think we got some insights into how the United States, how the Treasury is thinking about macroeconomics, thinking about liquidity, thinking about the markets, and why they've been behaving the way they've been behaving. So if that sounds good, I'm going to get this show on the road. So Scott Bessent, for those that don't know, Scott is a former hedge fund manager. He is our new U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, taking over for Janet Yellen. For those that have been listening to the show, I've paid particular attention to Scott, to the U.S. Treasury, and their behavior as of recent. They seemed to be tightening liquidity, almost trying to cause a recession on purpose. I said, with this new administration, I thought there'd be a lot of near-term volatility, not meaning up or down, just meaning bouncing around, but a lot of long-term, so I'm talking 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 12 months from now, bullishness, a lot of to the upside. Why do I think that? Why do I say that? Because Donald Trump campaigned on a weaker dollar. Donald Trump campaigned on reshoring production in the United States of America. I think what you're seeing globally is a lot of my country first. Okay. That's very inflationary. Let me explain. In order for a country to focus on itself, that means it wants to shore production of the stuff it consumes in its local economy. That means it wants to be competitive in exporting the things it's producing locally. That means, by definition, it has to be inflationary because you're spending a lot of money locally producing stuff, and you're also needing to have a weaker local currency to be competitive in the export business. Okay. So Donald Trump had this big campaign of America first. We need to care about ourselves. We need to focus on the American. We need to focus on our economy. We need to focus on our own production. That's highly inflationary. That implies a weaker dollar. Okay. Now, the question is, how were we going to get there? Right? By the way, a weaker dollar, all of these things, inflationary tendencies is very good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I believe, always is the best expression of currency debasement. It's a put option on the existing system. It's long volatility. It's the best way to express that things are going to have to change. The current monetary regime we're in now isn't going to last. The dollar is going to go lower. Hard assets are going to reign supreme. A neutral reserve currency is where humans are destined to trade. That's, to me, what Bitcoin is. So this is very good for Bitcoin. The dollar is going to have to get weaker. And everyone around the world is starting to focus on themselves, their country first, highly, highly, highly inflationary. Okay. The question is, how are we going to get there? And I made a speculative guess after the election that in the near term, it was going to be volatile and the long term is going to be bullish. And I made that because there was no real clear path for this administration to get what they wanted without some pain first. Now, we've already been experiencing this pain. And this is not particular to Bitcoin. This is not Bitcoin pain. This is economic pain. The S&P 500 has been getting killed. Mag 7s have been getting killed. I mean, stocks are down. Everything is down. Everything that people own is down. Why? It's because markets have been starved of liquidity. Okay. The real insight that I want to talk about that's now become fairly obvious because Secretary Bessent has been talking a lot and been giving us a lot of good quotes is that what he's claiming that, let me just pull up. I prepared some direct quotes. Treasury Secretary Bessent says economy could be, quote, starting to roll a little bit, end quote. He's admitting that he's very aware and arguably intending to push the economy to what he calls roll over, die off, correct, go down. Okay. That was his first quote. The second quote is the U.S. became addicted to government spending. Okay. He's in referencing to the government public investing in public market. So in the public sector. Okay. So he's talking about the billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that the government was spending within its own public sector, not the private sector, not businesses and local economy and small businesses starting in the United States, but the public sector of the United States. Okay. He then also said that the White House is heading off a, quote, guaranteed, end quote, financial crisis. Hilarious way to phrase that. He's implying that there was a guaranteed financial crisis supposedly conducted at the fault of the prior administration, but he's working hard to head off that financial crisis and protect you from it. So he's been talking a lot and really validating a lot of what I've been saying on this show and on this podcast. Let's dissect it a little bit. One, he's talking about the economy rolling because it's been addicted to liquidity in the public sector. At one point, government spending on itself was 25% of our GDP. Okay? 25%. If you looked at economic data over the last few years, it looked good, like from a high level. You're seeing economic growth, GDP growth. The problem was that growth was government spending on itself, was that there was a lot of money and a lot of investment, creating a lot of jobs and a lot of economic activity of government just spending money, who knows what, on what, but it was economically beneficial. Why? Because if the government's employing millions of people to do stuff, well, those millions of people, that money is going to end up at your Chipotle down the street, buying a house next door, going to end up going to the Chicago Bulls game. It's going to end up buying United airline flights and a vacation to the Bahamas. The money ends up in the economy. So it's a little bit weird. The economic data looked strong, but 25%, 1/4 of it was government spending in the public sector. Now, a reason that that's a problem is because you're investing a ton of money. 25% of your GDP, of your growth, is invested in a sector that's not producing anything of value. Okay. What has Elon Musk and Doge found out about the public sector and all they've been up to? They've been up to fuck all. They've been doing jack shit. They've been producing no value, no innovation, no growth for anyone. What do you think that does to things like our debt to GDP? You're constantly in a deficit. You're constantly spend, but you're investing in what Elon Musk is figuring out, departments that are doing like transgender surgeries on rats. Or, right? I mean, these departments are, absolutely losing money, spending it on nothing. Okay. And what Bessent is saying is the economy got addicted to overspending from government in the public sector that wasn't actually producing us growth. Okay. I've talked about this before. In the United States, debt to GDP is 130%. Globally, it's over 300%. Debt to GDP is, the best metric to look at. How much have we borrowed from our future? That's debt. Debt is pulling your future forward, spending it now, and hoping to arrive at the future with more than you have today, right? Period. So how much have we pulled our future forward to spend today versus how much growth are we producing to pay that back? Okay. At 130%, you've borrowed tremendously from your future and you're not producing enough growth to pay it back. So this new administration is all on, we need growth, we need growth, we need growth. And what Bessent is saying, very obviously, is our investment has been in the public sector, has been in the government. Government's not good at innovating, building real world value, and driving growth. It's not. In what they're doing now, very obviously, because they've gone on CNBC and said it, is we're going to let Elon Musk run rampant, cut all of the fraudulent garbage spending. And yes, we're going to market it as balancing the budget, making the government efficient. All these things are great. But the reality is, if we're going to be optimizing in a deficit, weakening the dollar, and spend, we have to get more efficient about that spend. And Bessent wants that spend to be in the private sector, not the public sector. He wants the billions and billions or trillions of dollars worth of investment not to go into the US government and people doing transgender surgery on rats, but he wants it into the private sector for people to build local manufacturing in America, for people to work on AI, for people to work on Bitcoin exchanges. That's the private sector, private businesses, startups, small businesses, growth, value, real economic data, not fake economic data. And so that, what he's calling the economy starting to roll, because he says it's a detox. These are all direct quotes. Detox. It's starting to roll. It's a transition period. He's taking the liquidity out of the public sector, out of the government, fraudulent garbage, fake spending, just to prop up economic data and numbers, and he's drying it out. So Elon's firing everybody. They're cutting every single budget. Guys, that is going to have an effect on the real world economy. If you take a ton of money that was being spent, whether it was fraudulently and whether it was working on stuff that you didn't actually believe in, that money still bought Chipotle burritos. It still bought houses. It still bought Chicago Bulls tickets. It still bought vacations. It still bought airline flights. It still bought clothes. It still went on Target runs when the refrigerator was empty. It still met the real world economy, no matter who it was funneled through. So if you starve the economy, you take it out, you're going to get a borderline recession. You're going to get a dip in stuff. Reality of the situation. And they're rotating that liquidity into the private sector because their whole thing is, in order to reshore America, we need to give tax cuts, we need to deregulate, we need to invest locally and allow people to have incentives to produce here and build shit here. We want AI built here. Trump's like, we want all the Bitcoins mined here. Whether it makes sense or not, his policy is America first, highly inflationary, weaker dollar, private sector. Unregulate. Take away all the regulations. Take away all the taxes. Let the guys build. But in order for them to get there, they had to take the money out of the public sector. So that's why there's a lot of, government that hates this administration. They do, because everyone's getting fired. Everyone's dumb bullshit budget and policies is getting cut. And the economy is going to take a hit in order for them to reposition. So my opinion has always been the same. And if you're a longtime listener of the show, you've done really well. We've been right on the ball. But now we're starting to get validation from the literal Treasury of the Secretary, which is he's saying, I know the economy is going to roll. I know we're going through a detox period. I'm literally rotating liquidity from the public sector to the private sector because we need growth and we need real value, real investment, real productivity. That's not going to come from the public sector. Of 1/4 of our economic progress can't be from the United States government. They're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. With all that rant, we now are starting to see a weaker dollar. The dollar's gone straight down. Bitcoin has held this $80,000 mark. All eyes are on the S&P 500 because the government needs the S&P 500 to survive. It is the primary savings account for the American. It is the primary vehicle in which they collect tax receipts, right? Capital gains. People feel rich. They spend their wealth. They buy a house. They buy stuff. They pay capital gains. That's an income stream for the government to cover its expenses. So I do think April, May will start to turn up. Now, last few thoughts on this rant, timing wise. Tariffs aren't supposed to actually enact and go live until the first week of April. We don't hear from Jerome Powell until Wednesday, 2 days from now. So what do I think about Bitcoin and the markets, where things are going? Some guy on Twitter predicted the price correctly or something. I don't think much of it. I think markets are going to wait. I think they're going to wait. Why would anyone take a position before we know what is the tariff policy? What's going to go live? Why is anyone going to take a position until we hear from Jerome Powell? Clearly, there's real recession fears. Clearly, the U.S. Treasury is rotating liquidity out of the public and into the private. Clearly, assets in this country have been getting hammered. What does the chair of the Fed have to say about that? We find out on Wednesday. What tariff policies are actually going to take place? We find out in 2 weeks. I believe this market is still in a wear you out or scare you out mentality. If you try and trade it, if you try and add leverage, it's going to chop you up. It's going to eat you alive. Again, if you took a nap from right before Trump got elected till today and you woke up, nothing really changed. Actually, Bitcoin went up a little bit. Going into the elections, Bitcoin was chopping around 50, 60K. Now, if you were glued to the screen for every second over the last 4 months, you've seen it go to 110, then 100, then 105, then 95, then 100, then 90, and it's chopping around and it's doing this, and this guy's predicting that, and the third. It's a wear you out or scare you out time in Bitcoin. You got to stay humble. You got to breathe. You got to be productive in your life. You got to stack sats. I'm telling you, we're getting real validation from the Treasury on what they're doing. They're starving the market of liquidity because they're putting a necessary rotation on where that liquidity is going in order to get the weaker dollar, in order to get the growth. I mean, this is really exciting for Bitcoin and for business owners. I mean, listen, not to get political, for me, I'm stoked. They're talking about deregulating so that businesses can innovate. They're talking about lessening our taxes. They're talking about over-investing in the private sector to drive growth and innovation. There's a particular keen interest in Bitcoin. We have a strategic reserve. This administration wants businesses like mine to thrive, to innovate, to grow, to put America first. This is bullish for Bitcoin. This is bullish for America. It was always obvious, though, that there was no silver bullets when this administration took office. There's going to have to be short-term pain. It was always obvious that that short-term pain would be felt right away. Would you want these guys to put everyone through a borderline recession going into midterms or right now? So a lot of the same message, but now with added context and direct quotes from the U.S. Treasury. This market is going to try and wear you out. This market is going to try and scare you out. Don't bend, don't break. Get sleep, touch grass, be productive, make more than you consume, stack sats, stay humble. I think the second half of this year gets explosive. I think assets get explosive going into midterms. I still think we can end the year with a $250,000 Bitcoin. I think we're starting to feel out a bottom. Now, whether we actually go through, listen, when you put assets through what they're being put through right now, you might trip up a bank. You might trip up a hedge fund. You might trip up a major, well-known financial services firm. You might. You have no idea the stack of cards that gets collapsed when you send the S&P down 20%. You just don't. So do we get a mini financial crisis? Entirely possible. Could Bitcoin puke to 70K? Entirely possible. But my point is you're starting to see a little bit of a bottoming. Not this very day, but we've got actual tariff policy in 2 weeks. We've got Jerome Powell speaking again on Wednesday. Let's see what he has to say. Is he going to acknowledge the weaker economic data? Is he going to acknowledge that, hey, actually, now that you think about it, and if I spin it this way, that, and a third, inflation's not that bad? Let's hear what he has to say. Let's watch the 10-year. Let's see what tariffs. I would not be surprised if Bitcoin is at all-time highs May, June. That means over $110,000. And that's 6 weeks away, 10 weeks away. So that's what's on my mind. That's my one topic this week. Macroeconomics. The United States is now publicly, they're rotating liquidity from the public sector. We're not spending on transgender rat surgery. We're not spending on stupid education programs. We're not spending on dumb shit. Elon Musk, go fire everybody, send assets down, get the correction out, gut the system. We got to turn liquidity into the private sector. We got to weaken this dollar. We got to focus on growth. We got to juice assets because we have debt to GDP to solve. We got to go. And by the way, Jerome Powell, I need lower rates. I have to refinance $10 trillion this year. Plan is almost over. Okay, I mean, that's pretty much all that was really on my mind. I mean, it's MSTR. Saylor made a few announcements, but nothing material. Didn't buy a ton. And again, I just don't want to fall victim to a lot of the drama and politics on the internet. It's there to waste your time. People are emotional right now. They're scared. It's a wear you out or scare you out. Me personally, I've been going to the gym. I've been playing a lot of chess. I've been building businesses. I've got some really exciting announcements coming out. We're getting ready to launch our lending product. Focus on yourself. Stay humble, stack sats, be healthy, be productive. Bitcoin with an 8 in front of it and 5 digits is a blessing. Take advantage of it. But I've seen too many victims of the wear you out, scare you out. I mean, people are rage quitting Twitter, getting in fights. I mean, grown men, embarrassing stuff. Cool. Okay. What questions do we have? Let me pull up the questions. I'm based on the feedback, I'm going to try and keep this episode short. Try and keep it short. 20 minutes in, maybe we do 10, 15 minutes of Q&A and we're out of here. Real quick, I see one of the questions or many of the questions about Strike's lending product. Here's a Mailbag Monday live viewers special. We have started testing our lending product and launching it. So it's not publicly available yet. It will likely be publicly available in 2 to 3 weeks. If you want to help us test and be an early customer and get access before everybody else, DM me on Twitter, my Twitter or Noster. Tag me on Twitter or Noster. My Twitter is @JackMallers. Noster, I'm also Jack Mallers. I mean, I don't know my public key off the top of my head, but you'll be able to find it. If you want a Bitcoin collateralized loan from Strike, reach out to me. The product is live. We are actively testing, and I'm more than happy to give those that are loyal listeners of the show and supporters of mine access to getting a loan against their Bitcoin. I'll pitch the product really quick so you guys know what I'm talking about, and then we'll go into Q&A. So the product is really simple. If you hold Bitcoin on Strike, we will give you a loan against that Bitcoin. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, the worst thing you could ever do is sell your Bitcoin, right? The question is, how do you get access to the wealth that is generating by you holding Bitcoin without having to sell the Bitcoin? Now, in order to understand how humans have traditionally done this, look at an asset class like real estate. If someone bought Manhattan real estate in the 1600s and the building value just kept going up over time, smart investors don't actually sell the Manhattan building. Just let it keep going up over time. What do? They remortgage it. They refinance it. They borrow money against it. And they take that money and they do something productive with the money. Okay. So if Bitcoin's going up around 50 to 60% a year, and you can get a loan against that Bitcoin for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15%, whatever, as long as that number is significantly below the 60, then never sell your Bitcoin, borrow against the Bitcoin, right? And that way you can so what do? I put all my wealth in Bitcoin. I take a loan out against my Bitcoin. And over time, as my paychecks come in, I slowly pay off the loan. And I never sell my being able to borrow against an asset changes the entire dynamics of the asset class because you don't ever have to sell the asset. Bitcoin all of a sudden goes from a scarce, desirable money that everyone has access to globally to a scarce, desirable money that everyone has access to globally that no one ever has to sell. Like, let me clue you in on a tip, you guys. People that have bought Manhattan real estate in the 1600s still own it today. You know, those rich New York trust fund kids that piss you off at the clubs? They're inheriting real estate that's 500 years old. Why would you sell a scarce asset that only goes up? The problem for Bitcoin is we can never get a loan until we built it. So the whole point of the product is you can deposit Bitcoin on Strike. We'll give you a loan. It's the coolest user experience in the world is you download the app, you either buy Bitcoin, you put Bitcoin on there, and you literally just slide. We actually had to add a little bit of friction because it was so easy to just slide, get $1 million loan, withdraw it to Chase. It arrives in Chase in 2 seconds. You do whatever you want. You need to buy a house. You need to start a business. It's crazy. So really, really cool product. Never sell your Bitcoin. Just borrow. The last thing, so we built this innovative. So, okay, listen. A lot of the Strike products are created because they're built for me. The dream product for me is, let's say I take out $100,000 loan, let's say, against my Bitcoin. So I go into Strike. I say I want a loan. I slide the thing to $100,000. I click create loan. Boom. Strike just gives me $100,000. I withdraw it. I have it in Chase. Boom. Amazing. Now, let's say I'm using round numbers here. Let's say the rate on that is 10%. So that means I own 10% of $100,000 a year. So I own $10,000 a year to have that $100,000 loan until I close it out. Now, what I would like, instead of actually having to make any payments, what I would like is if my interest payments rolled into my principal, meaning every time I owe a payment, instead of making me pay it, just add it to my loan size. So let's say my first payment was $800. Let's say $800 a month to have a $100,000 loan. Okay. Instead of making me pay the $800, roll the interest into the principal, meaning make my loan now $108,000 or $800,000. Does that make $800,000? Does that make sense? And then in that way, my principal keeps getting bigger, but my Bitcoin that's collateralizing the loan also grows over time. And so I'm never actually having to make a payment. As long as Bitcoin continues to grow over time, my principal grows. All is well. So the loan that I take out with Strike, I don't even have to finance the payments. I just severely over collateralize my loan. That's the strategy for me. So it's a beautiful product because in that way, as long as Bitcoin averages going up over whatever the interest rate is on the loan, the Bitcoin's going to outgrow the principal forever. Hopefully that made sense. I see people say it's literally reverse compound interest. Yeah, but you got it twisted. Listen, let's say I buy Bitcoin some years ago and I look and Bitcoin's gone up so much and I have $1 million. The question is, how am I going to make use of that $1 million without having to sell all my Bitcoin? I don't want to sell the Bitcoin. So sure, I'm borrowing and getting a loan and my principal's growing, but my $1 million is going up 50% a year. What are you, nuts? So that means next year, my $1 million is 1.5 million. And then the year after that, it's 2.25 million. And then after that, it's over almost $3.5 million. So just by waiting 2-3 years and not selling the Bitcoin, I've made well over 100%. And yeah, I have a loan in principal that's growing 10% a year. Who fucking cares? Because my asset that I'm borrowing against is going up 50% a year. Why would anyone sell their Bitcoin if you could borrow against it? It's the same reason. Why would anyone sell a building in New York if you could just borrow against it? Now, you could also not do that. You could also make payments every month. I mean, we'll have both products, but for me personally, so if you want to get early access, ping me on Twitter. Let's see if any of you have pinged me on Twitter yet. Ping me on Twitter, shoot me a DM. I would say the product will be publicly available first or second week of April. This is just how we roll out products typically. We give early access, test things, different copy ideas, and then we slowly roll it out to the public with an announcement. So reach out to me. Let me know. For all you interested in lending, we're very close. And everyone's like, how close? End of this year? Like, don't overhype something that isn't coming. Like, it is coming. It's like a month away. It will have minimums. Also, just so you guys know, like, listen, it's not going to be perfect the day we launch it. It's going to have minimums. It's going to have maximums. Some states is going to take us longer to get there than others. So we're not going to be in every single US state right away. We're not going to be in Europe or the UK right away. So just give us time. But at the very least, we're going to come to market with a kick-ass product. And we're really excited about it. And it'll just get better every single day like we do everything else. Okay. That's the lending stuff to address a lot of your lending questions. Now let's do some Q&A. And I'm keeping this episode short based on the feedback. And I'm out of here. Macro question. Besides Fed policies, what are some other drivers of global liquidity and what is your outlook on those factors? Fed policy, meaning interest rates, Fed policy also, like the Fed, there's a rule the Fed controls at the banking committee level, which basically allows them to own banks to own treasuries with no collateral, like infinite amounts of leverage. Okay. After 2008, everyone was like, we should probably make sure that banks can't infinitely lever themselves to death. They should have to post like some collateral in order to put these positions on. Very reasonable. But then that caps how much they can. I mean, the US government needs infinite demand for their debt. And so if you cap physically the amount of debt banks could buy, things get a little dicey when China's not interested anymore. So then they undid that rule and then they redid it again. And so the question is, the Fed could go to banks and say, screw the collateral, buy as many treasuries as you want, infinite leverage. That would be very inflationary, lots of liquidity, lower rates. I mean, listen, Jerome Powell can come out and say QT, quantitative tightening. I'm going to put a stop to it. And then separately, a little bit later, he could say we're starting QE, quantitative easing. Those are the things I'd look at the Fed. And then the Treasury, the Treasury general account. There's been all sorts of policies like the bank term funding program. You guys remember that? What happened after Silicon Valley Bank? There's always all sorts of programs and vehicles to inject liquidity into the market. Like one thing that the Treasury can do is revalue the gold. So the Treasury values gold on its balance sheet at a gold price that's decades old. If they were to update the gold price, they'd create $1 trillion worth of wealth in the Treasury general account. There you go. Boom. $1 trillion. So there's all sorts of things between the Fed and the Treasury. I think, listen, the takeaway is this. Trump is inflationary. Like thinking in my country first is inflationary. It means local production of goods and services. It means competing in the export economy. It means your currency has to get weaker. It means weaker dollar. It means higher assets. Trump talks a lot about S&P 500, real estate, and Bitcoin. His focus is on juicing assets for the people, weakening the US dollar, driving more growth in the private sector, not the public sector. That is what he campaigned on. And now we're starting to see it in action. That's why I said I expect volatility in the short term, things to chop around, things to be uneasy. How's tariffs going to shake out? How is Powell and Trump's relationship going to go? How is the rotation from public and private going to go? That's what we're going to get in the first few months of this administration. It's going to be brutal. Assets are going to sell off. Bitcoin's going to lead. It's the only free market. But over the long term, I've been telling you guys, like at the end of this year, Bitcoin's going to be way higher than it is today because you're going to get that rotation. The economy is going to cleanse itself. You're going to get investment in the private sector. In the private sector, businesses deregulate, lower taxes, direct investment domestically instead of funding stupid government programs. Have Elon run amok, create all the memes he wants, fire everyone, and get that investment into the private sector. Listen, would you rather have Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos getting government grants in the form of tax cuts and incentives and lesser regulation? Or would you rather have the Department of Education get $100 billion investment? I mean, come on, give me a fucking break. Markets and Bitcoin price. Do the ETFs dilute the scarcity of Bitcoin at all? Or do they need to own one coin for every share of Bitcoin they give traders access to? ETFs do not dilute. They do need to own the Bitcoin backed per the security they're selling. And by the way, BlackRock filed for what's called in-kind redemptions, meaning that you could physically withdraw the Bitcoin that backs the ETF that you're buying. Pretty cool. So not only do they legally have to, and there's always speculation on our ETFs pay per Bitcoin. I've given my opinion on that. I think there's no chance in hell. There's not enough Bitcoin. It's too scarce of an asset held sovereignly by the people for this market to be manipulated. It's too decentralized. It's too distributed. But even more than that, the biggest ETF issuers have already applied for in-kind redemption. So that if you own ETFs with BlackRock at IBIT, you can go onto their website. I actually don't know how it would work, but I assume they have a website and you can go and physically withdraw the Bitcoin as if you're on strike, which would then literally imply that it's backed, or else there would be a run on the bank. Am I still targeting 250K to 1 million this cycle? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I still think we're going to hit 250K this year. I really do. I mean, listen, this cycle reminds me of 2016, 2017 for a lot of reasons. One of the interesting things about that cycle from a macroeconomic standpoint is there was a lot of global liquidity created outside the US. You know, something that's really interesting is everywhere else around the world has already started easing monetary policy, like all the other major central banks have. China is the one that's biggest in trouble. And that was what happened in 2016, 17. I expect similar this year. The reason I bring it up is because in 2017, the first time Bitcoin closed above 2,500 was in June. It ended the year at 20,000. June is month 6 out of the year. There are 12 months in the year. So Bitcoin 10x'd in 6 months. So do I think that Bitcoin can close in June at like 125,000 and end the year at 400,000? I do think that. I do. I think that this administration is gearing up. It's like pulling back a slingshot, and it's going to launch a lot of liquidity and a lot of investment in the private sector. Also, I mean, listen, I hate politics. These guys are telling you what to own, by the way. You'd have to be an idiot not to own Bitcoin. The President of the United States, the Secretary of its Treasury, and the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, and Donald Trump, are telling you to buy it. Like, let me translate what they've been saying. We're going to weaken the dollar. We're going to rotate liquidity and investment out of the public sector and into the private sector. We're going to juice assets. We love Bitcoin. What are you, fucking dumb? You shitting me, shithead? I've been in New York so much with travel. This is it's what these Jersey guys say. They say, "You shitting me, shithead?" I mean, so it's obvious to me. I think 250 is well within range this year. Could this cycle bleed into next year? Yeah. I think Bitcoin's trading off global liquidity right now. Everyone's got to ease. Way too much debt around the world. The world needs growth and weaker currency. It's the only way out. 250 to 1 million. And the last thing I'll say on these price predictions is, do you know who defines the price of Bitcoin? It's not the buyer. It's the seller. It's all of us listening to this podcast. Bitcoin's the only thing. Listen, with everything else in life, with more demand comes more supply. If you want another iPhone, you could walk into Apple and get one because they can make more supply. If you want another McDonald's cheeseburger, you can walk into a McDonald's and get one because they can make more supply. If people want more Bitcoin, it's the only thing in life that nobody can make anymore. So in order to get more Bitcoin, you have to get it from the people that already have it. This is what we call price discovery in financial markets. When something reaches price discovery is when how much do the sellers value the thing? Like, let me tell you something. If someone came to me and said, Bitcoin's all-time high is 109,000, I'll buy one of your Bitcoins for 110. Bitcoin's not worth $110,000 to me. It's also not worth like, I will never sell my Bitcoin. That's what you guys don't understand. Like, Bitcoin's going to infinity because I value it at infinity. You cannot pay me to sell my Bitcoin. I don't want your shitty dollars. I don't. I have a house I love. I have stuff that gets me by. For everything else, I have Bitcoin. There's nothing you can give me to get my Bitcoins. So this market is defined by its sellers, not the buyers, because you can't make any more of it. So can it go to 1 million? If the people holding this asset value Bitcoin at $1 million, then it's going to be worth $1 million. Just put that in your head. That's not true for anything else. For gold. Okay. All the gold bugs could value 1 ounce of gold at $1 million. But you can go produce more gold. There's more in the ground. So at the end of the day, gold is going to be worth however much it costs to make it. If you can make an excessive amount of gold, imagine all the new supply that's going to come and dump the market down. For Bitcoin, you cannot make more. Thoughts on Josh Mandel's $84,000 trade target that was hit on the exact day and his $444,000 price prediction? I mean, this is Bitcoin Twitter bored and itching for a bull run. Listen, I don't know this guy, Josh. Seems smart. I mean, to be able to predict a Bitcoin price like that, that's a cool achievement. What more do you want me to say? As far as I can tell, I haven't seen any rationale beyond some spidey sense that he's got. And again, like, I don't know the guy. Probably really cool guy, probably really smart guy. I can't compliment him too much because I don't know him. I'm not going to hate on anybody I don't know. It's also a useless emotion, waste of energy. But what do I think about one of the 8 billion people on the planet correctly predicting the Bitcoin price? I don't give a shit. I got stuff to do. We all do. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, everyone's wound up about that. I'm telling you, like, I've got the same opinion, guys. It's a wear you out, scare you out market. Markets are just going to grind you down. Trump got elected. We voted him in. We freed Ross. Don't I get my $500,000 Bitcoin now? And it's going to test you and it's going to grind you down. And so I think it's just people are losing their mind a little bit on the internet. I think slower economy and lower asset prices is getting to people. And like I said, I mean, look at people in the chat. Laugh out loud, co-parter, Jack. Co-parter at what? I didn't say I was upset. What do you want me to like go and say this guy's Gandhi? Even the chat right now, it blows my mind. I don't know what to say. Or I don't know. Here, I'll change my opinion. He's a genius. He's the best guy. I don't know. He predicted the price. That's really exciting for him, I guess. Or for us. I don't know. I'm gonna stay humble and stack sats. I don't know the guy at all. And I don't I'm happy for him. It's just a weird thing for Bitcoiners to be so married to this guy's price predictions. But I mean, he killed it. Yeah, good for him. I don't know though. This is not the show where I'm gonna be obsessing over a grown man's price predictions. It's just you guys go to a different show for that. What would you consider to be the biggest event / indicator that would trigger another significant bull run? Global liquidity M2, the DXY, the price of the dollar, weaker dollar, more liquidity. I don't know, and wherever the Treasury is injecting liquidity. So, dude, look at the reaction from the chat. Who is this Josh guy? Is this your guy's father? I'm not insulting him. I've never seen anything like this. I'm giving him credit. Credit for what? He predicted the price. That's really impressive. I've never done that. I've never done that in my life. That's very impressive. I'm very happy for him. We move on. You guys are nuts, man. Not only did he predict it, but he acted on his prediction. He turned $2 million into $23 million. That's incredible. Good for him. He's gonna be really happy. That's amazing. Bizarre. This community, man. That's awesome. What do you guys want me to say? People do good stuff all the time. He's great. I guess. I don't know him. That's the other crazy thing. What if tomorrow comes out this guy has done something heinous in his prior life? I have no idea who this is, actually. Let's see. I don't even know if I follow him on Twitter. Whatever. I'm reading the chat too much. This is a bizarre loyalty I've never seen before. It is really impressive. Good for him. 2 million to 23 million is great. He should do that again. And if he thinks Bitcoin's going higher, so do I. We share that in common. In your recent traveling / networking, are you hearing anything about the potential removal of capital gains on Bitcoin? What's your hunch if that's a possibility? I've never believed any of these rumors because if Trump's going to cut taxes, he's going to cut taxes on all assets. I don't think he's going to pick winners like Bitcoin to have no taxes and everything else have taxes. I also don't think as Bitcoiners we want that. I don't think we want special treatment. I've always wanted Bitcoin to compete in a fair and free market. I think it's the destined winner if it's a fair and free market and has a chance. So I don't think we want special treatment. I don't think we're going to get special treatment. I mean, I can't imagine. Listen, no one would own anything else. I mean, you're saving 30% just by owning Bitcoin over the other stuff. So I never believe those rumors personally, but we'll see. Could Trump cut taxes overall? Could the overall cap gains rate come down? 100%. He's talked about that pretty clearly. So we'll see, but I don't think and don't want Bitcoin to get special treatment. It puts a target on our back. New administrations after Trump are going to reverse that. It's going to get sloppy. It's going to get messy. Makes us look like we're favorite children. And I mean, I'm all for fair and equal rules for all. I don't want special treatment. Do you think in-kind redemptions on Bitcoin ETFs will allow MicroStrategy to increase revenue by selling calls or by leveraging to buy future dated call options? Maybe. But I think I don't know what to make. I think Sailor. I think it's going to be interesting to see what this new strike product of Sailor does. He mentioned he bought, what did he buy today? Like $10 million worth of Bitcoin. I don't know. I didn't read to see where those proceeds came from. Where MicroStrategy innovates from here, I think will be interesting. There's always speculation about them being a Bitcoin bank and they're operating on this massive treasury. They have all this permanent capital. And he's going to have to find, I think, new innovative ways to grow strategies. So we'll see. Totally possible. He's been pretty vocal, though, that he plans to keep his strategy as simple as possible. He doesn't want to make it complicated. I don't think he wants to introduce any execution risk. I don't think he wants the market to value him and price him as an executor. He wants to just acquire the Bitcoin, keep it simple, because he thinks he has a first mover advantage, and he's not going to make his job more complicated than it needs to be until it has to be. So we'll see. But I don't know. I think Saylor's going to keep it simple for a little while. You typically say to own your house in Bitcoin. What percentage of one stack would you recommend to sacrifice to own a house? It's funny you asked that because of our Bitcoin lending product on Strike. I'm actually thinking of refinancing my home. Because again, if I can extract wealth out of my Bitcoin position, I might as well. I don't know though. I don't like giving personal finance advice because it comes down to your lifestyle, people's lifestyle, and the quality of life that they want. Listen, I've met some of the richest guys in the world and hung out with them, and they live a lower quality lifestyle, a cheaper lifestyle, let's say, than some of the guys I know living paycheck to paycheck. So it's all a personal preference. It's the quality of life and lifestyle that you want. Do you have kids? Are you depressed? Where in the world are you living? These are questions I don't have. And also at the end of the day, like, what do you want out of your life? I think it's all personal. Totally up to you. But I am excited to have products like Bitcoin loans that give people the flexibility of accessing a lot of the wealth that they have in the asset class without having to sell it. Feature request. Can a couple have a joint Strike account? It's a good feature request. I will forward that to the team 100%. Bitcoin wallet for children. Yeah. So we need a special license to serve kids, believe it or not. Talk about deregulation. I don't know why I would need a special license to serve someone that's not 18. It's the same product, but that's the reason I cannot onboard someone below 18 years old is I need to get a special license. We haven't really prioritized that. We've thought Bitcoin loans are more important, more innovative. But eventually, I'd love to have a Bitcoin wallet for children, either if that regulation gets improved or if we have the time to go get that license. Will we get our P&L, profit and loss on Bitcoin buys, and our average cost? Yes. I think that's coming soon. We've been hearing that feedback for a long time, and I know the team is working on it. So that's going to come soon. Will Strike integrate support for self-custody of Bitcoin via our own hardware linked to Strike? Yeah, I think we're working on integration into BitKey. That is Jack Dorsey. That is Block's hardware wallet. And we could add more, 100%. I mean, I think the integration to send your cold card, for example, is already pretty good. You just paste the address in there. But we'll definitely look to explore it. Or even maybe, Vault products like an Anchor Watch or like Casa or Unchained. All are possible. When will Strike revamp the tax reporting / cost basis, input and cost basis for coins? That also is coming super soon. The ability to input your cost basis for coins when moving them onto Strike. That's coming super soon. Actually, it might be live in our dashboard. If not, it's coming soon. But we heard that feedback and ability to input your cost basis when you deposit onto Strike is an easy one. Okay, personal. Whenever there's a personal section for me, it always makes me nervous. We'll see what you guys want to know about me. I think you said you only hold Bitcoin and live off of it. How do you do this? Oh, nice. I love telling this story. So we at Strike, we built these two products really for me, to be honest. One is direct deposit. So I get my paychecks all in Bitcoin. So the way it works is Strike gives me an account and routing number. I give that to Strike, my employer, technically. And when Strike sends me my paychecks, it goes into my Strike account, gets converted into Bitcoin. And so my paychecks get converted into Bitcoin the second I receive them. So I effectively get paid in Bitcoin. So I have no dollar balance on Strike or in any bank account. I just have Bitcoin. And then I use bill pay with Strike. So we also built a feature that allows you to pay your bills from Strike. Now you can pay bills from your dollar balance, but you can also pay bills from your Bitcoin balance. So the way I do it is I live on credit cards. Credit cards is a product that allows me to spend dollars without having them. So I'm basically borrowing dollars at zero interest rate because I never miss payments. And so I'm borrowing dollars for free, spending the currency that only goes down, and hoarding as many Bitcoins as I can. So my paychecks come into Bitcoin. They sit in Strike. I spend on credit cards. I have an HOA for this place. Like all of these things, I just link my Strike accounting routing number and it pulls from my Strike account. Strike converts the Bitcoin back to dollars, sends the payment out. So I never have to touch dollars. I only live on Bitcoin. And then it gets even better when I can take a loan against my Bitcoin, because then right now I'm selling Bitcoin. Well, not anymore. Before I was selling Bitcoin to pay bills because it's converting my Bitcoin in my account and paying the bills. Now I can borrow against my Bitcoin, have a little pile of dollars that pays the bills every single month. And I never have to sell the Bitcoin. I just keep adding to my Bitcoin stash as my paychecks come in. I have a loan that covers my bills. The dream. Like once you get a loan on Strike, as long as you're over collateralized and you're not over levered and you can survive downturns, you don't ever have to sell Bitcoin ever again. That's the craziest that's the craziest thing. Like when people say like, how important is your lending product? We enable people to never have to sell Bitcoin ever again. People only sell Bitcoin, in my opinion, because they have to, not because they want to. If you don't have to, why would you? How do I buy coffee? I just told you, with credit cards. I have my credit cards on Apple Pay. Boop. Pretty amazing. And honestly, I mean, it's great. Like I got cards that are giving me free flights, free lounges, free wine, 3%, 4%, 5% cash back, free hotels. So I get all these rewards for spending on credit card, and I just hold Bitcoin. Amazing. I pay my credit cards right now with Strike's bill pay feature. So Strike, if you download Strike, you get an account and routing number in the US, and it works just like any other bank account. Attach your Strike account to wherever you got to pay bills. It pulls from your Strike account, from your Bitcoin balance if you want. All right. I said I'd keep the episode short. My goal was under an hour, and I've achieved that. We're at the 58-minute mark. So keep giving me feedback. Obviously, I'm reading it. We were at 19.9K subscribers on YouTube when I started this. If you haven't already, please subscribe. This is like my pet project this year. Really, really fun for me. I want to get to 100,000 YouTube subscribers. I think we can do it. We're already almost at 20K. So if you can subscribe, it'd mean a lot. I have a lot of fun with you guys, and keeping it short, no trivia, only Q&A, and keeping it to one topic. So my one topic is analyzing Besant, the Treasury, macroeconomics. I think we've got some up. I think we're almost bottomed out. Close. Maybe a few weeks or another month left, but I think May, June, we're going to see new highs in Bitcoin and more liquidity. I think they're almost done. That's my prediction. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace and love. Appreciate you. And I'll see you in the comment section. And go Josh, whoever he is. Don't hurt yourself, because I don't know who that is.